And we're back. Last episode here in our series of tips with Ashley. Welcome back, Ashley.
Hi, thanks for having me again.
Awesome.
Happy to be
Yes,
here.
of course. Thank you for joining us, being a sport here and joining us. So we're going to wrap up this 4 episode series again, and it's not technically a series, but the 4 episodes of tips that we recorded with you with what I think is probably one of the ones that have been coming up quite a bit because we did talk about executive orders recently, but you were telling me about the topic. I was like, oh, that one's been coming up a lot. So what are we talking about today?
Today, I think we're going to talk about importer of record responsibilities. And, we've always kind of known those exist, but they're getting amplified.
Right, and not only amplified, but also defined in such a way where I don't know if it's true or not. I guess it's probably part of what you might talk about, but part of the either misunderstanding or maybe it is true. Like being a foreign operator and being an importer record here in the U.S. might be a little more challenging now, or
Yes, that is true. Under the executive order that just came out, that is going to become definitely more scrutinized, and your broker will have to be CTPAT. There's a list of requirements now because really I foresee this leading to the conversation of importers of record should not be foreign. And so they're trying to make it harder. You have to have like a US bank account, just all sorts of ways to just make it a little bit more difficult.
right. And I've been to several, I guess, a couple of conferences since that executive order, and especially at NCBFAA, where the majority of the attendees there are brokers,
Hmm.
that are acting on behalf of your importer or the importer
Right.
record. So they were the ones that were like pointing out things that, of course, me not being a broker did not really maybe have heard of it, but did not realize it. Like
It's putting a lot on brokers.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
putting a lot on brokers. And it is, I think, obviously we all know customs brokers have a lot on them already, but this is putting a new level of scrutiny, which should be on the importer, in my opinion. And while brokers can help, they're not always going to be the ones that have all of the information that customs needs, right? So
hmm
at the end of the day, it's going to have to, I don't know. We'll see how this works out. I'm really interested to see. It's going to be definitely one of those things that I hope more people pay attention to. I hope brokers are pushing their clients. I hope we're being proactive. Definitely, I want importers to own their classifications. We talked about in a previous episode, valuation, country of origin, any part of your supply chain that maybe you did not have the greatest visibility to, definitely look into it and keep looking into it. I will keep saying this as well. Don't just set it and forget it. Stay with it. We're not seeing this go away. If anything, we're going to see more enforcement.
Correct. So part of what we talked about coming into this episode, you were saying about just responsibilities in this era of enforcement. You did talk about several of them: valuation, tariff classification, and all this kind of good stuff. But how do you see that as compared to, say, the previous administration? When we did not have that executive order. I'm not saying that this is something new. I mean,
Yeah.
well, to an
It,
extent,
it
some
shouldn't
of it
be
is.
new, right?
Yeah,
And
it
it's not
shouldn't.
new
That's yeah.
because we did have the Mod Act. We had a bunch. I mean, we just know, like, we know that this should be the case. This is just putting it even more in writing and saying, putting deadlines in place. Those deadlines are just that. They're dead. They're not going to move. I don't see them, being pushed out. So it's basically saying you get this in order or you're not going to be compliant. Before, in my opinion, I think importers knew that they had to own these responsibilities, but they also highly relied on their customs brokers, right? If
hmm
I had $1 for every time that I had an importer say my customs broker handles that, I may be able to retire very soon. But we can't say that anymore. That can be a partnership, definitely, but the importer has to maintain those records, has
hmm
to maintain that responsibility. I think that's the big one, the responsibility.
And I guess this has also been a bigger, I mean, we did talk about brokers having a lot more responsibility, but part of the reason is because of the fact that the de minimis went away, right? And because of that, now even the small importers, I mean, we're talking about like the Etsy's of the world, right? And not necessarily Etsy itself, but the vendors in on Etsy who would sell, and although they can still do informal entries, doesn't mean that it's de minimis where you pretty much didn't do anything, right? I mean, and so now you have to at least file an entry, informal or not, but you still have to file one. And my assumption is that that has increased a lot of the reasons why you need to know who your importer record is. And because I suppose back in the day, they used to have these large businesses and that would manufacture everything, right? Whatever, they would manufacture a bunch of stuff in, say, China. They would bring it into the US as a bunch of small little entries, and that's how they would, get around the de minimis, not get around it, but get through through de minimis. And meanwhile, the actual importer or the person that let's say the Etsy shop owner just took delivery here in the States after it cleared, no? Is that the
Right.
way? Yeah.
Yeah. So with that going away, there's definitely more volume, and importers are also having to answer more questions they weren't used to. Maybe that's PGA information or
Hmm.
classification information. One of the biggest or first things I ask is who owns your classifications, because that really gives me kind of within one sentence, I can tell how mature their compliance program is,
Hmm.
right? If you know nothing about who handles or maintains your classifications, that's going to tell us a lot. Importer responsibility is forefront, or it should be. And if it isn't, I think those are the people and companies who are going to, I don't want to say pay, but aren't going to like either reap the benefits or, be able to look into things before it's a fire and you need to put it out,
Okay.
right? I practice proactivity, not reactivity. I want everyone to know all of this is happening and go ahead and look at your program. Don't wait until after the fact.
And we're a lot of what we're talking about, and we're doing like a in a perfect world scenario, right? I mean, in a perfect
Yeah.
world, you should be doing this, this, and this. And of course, we don't live in a perfect world.
Yeah.
And then I guess of the flip side of the coin, I used to, again, at NCBFA, I heard several like surety companies, that issue bonds or insure, shipments coming into the States and all that. I heard their argument too, like how this may be, and again, excuse me if I'm like saying something out of line here, but how they may be, this may work even better for them because sometimes they would get importers of record that would ghost them and disappear all of a sudden, right? Because they they're just not good corporate
Yeah.
citizens. They're not good
And
actors, let's say, so.
so I think the EO and everything that's coming with it, these aren't necessarily bad things. I don't think. I think we need the enforcement, right?
Mhm.
I think that it's just more so the sticker shock of, okay, you really have to pay attention now, though, right? You really
Right.
have to pay attention. But no, I don't think it's necessarily bad things either. I think
Right, and
these,
but that would
yeah,
help that situation, no? Because now you have to have a US bank account, whereas before maybe you didn't, and then you ghosted or you just suddenly
yeah,
disappeared.
there are other vetting procedures, right? You
Right.
have to work with CTPAT entities. You have to make sure the bank account's in the United States. It's basically a control mechanism too, right? A paper trail. We can see the legitimacy. Whereas before it was really hard with foreign importers record. So
Mhm. Right, yeah, and then that way these other companies, the service providers will have a fallback as to not getting left holding the bag anymore, like, "Well,
right,
I
right,
paid your bond, but when are you gonna pay me?" Right? It's
right.
like, I never see that money, so
I
yeah.
know. I know. So
Okay,
I
great.
really think honestly, importer of record responsibilities are growing. Not maybe growing, becoming more of a forefront and growing. But have a process in place again so it's not overwhelming. Continue to review your records, get into ACE, run reports, make sure nothing looks wonky, right? Tariff numbers that you know that you always import. If you see something that's amiss, just dig into it. There are tools now that can help. And if you aren't sure of these, there are resources, there are guides that your broker can hopefully help you. Just ask the questions. I say this too. Ask the questions. That you don't have to manually go through paper entries anymore to audit, right? There are better ways. So definitely just ask. It's going to be worth it now in case you got to get money back or change something, then either when it's too late or when you got to do something post entry.
Right, right. So was that your takeaway?
I
Or
don't
do you
know if
have
it's my
something?
takeaway, but it's just another make sure you're auditing like before the fact. Like don't just wait until customs asks. Don't wait till, statements already paid. Just set up a cadence and say, okay, let me run this report and just look at it. So
Right. Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashley, once again. Anything else that you might need? This is your last of our series, but for sure we'll have you back again. I mean, once we go through the rotation of instructors and all that, we'll definitely have you back because
yes.
we want to keep this rolling and giving folks, some quick tips and not have to, sometimes maybe even remind them, right? Like CTPAT. Oh, let me remind
Yeah.
you that you need to do
Yes.
this, and
Yeah. Or a reminder that you can ask your broker that question, right? Your broker's your partner. So it's
exactly.
important.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Ashley, once again. Hopefully, we'll catch up here, and y'all keep an eye out for us starting new courses and or existing courses, but now being taught by Ashley. We're hoping to have that settled with her so that we can have her teach stuff for us. But anything else, Ashley? And
I think that's it. Just stay
awesome.
diligent, audit, and always reach out for questions. And thank you for having me.
Of course, Ashley. Thank you, and we'll be back with more episodes the following weeks. Thank you, everyone.